Hey guys, welcome back to Rush. Today we'll be looking at upgrading the front brakes on my R32 GTR. I'm going to do this in a three-stage process. Today's video will focus solely on updating brake pads. I've chosen to go with Intima SR brake pads, a good combination for street and a little light track work. If you've seen my other video, 9 things I hate about my R32 GTR, you'll know on my list was brakes. Stock OEM brakes on R32 GTR are not great. So I aim to improve those wherever I can using a 3-step process. First, brake pads, rotors, and then full flush and stainless steel braided lines. Today's video will focus purely on the brake pads. So in today's video, we'll walk through how to change the brake pads on R32 GTR, specifically the Sumitomo brakes, not the V-Spec 2 Brembo brakes. But the process is very similar. It's such an easy process. It's almost like changing brake pads for a race car. So if you stick around to the end of the video, we'll do a braking comparison with the standard brake pads versus the Intima SR brake pads. Step 2 of this process, which we won't go into in this video, is replacing the front rotors with slotted rotors. And step 3 will be focusing on replacing the standard hoses and brake lines with stainless steel braided lines and also doing a full flush. I'm hoping with the brake pad upgrade we'll see slightly better results, better feel and a little bit more bite. Alright, so like I said, I've chosen the Intima SR brake pads for a good street pad. These are the ones here. Come really highly recommended from multiple people and especially on the SAU forums. Good cheap option. I bought these off Kudos Motorsport in Australia. Really well priced. It came in 2 days, so highly recommend Kudos. So let's get to it. And what you want to do if your car is low, which I assume most cars will be, you want to kind of build some ramps either with timber or any kind of car ramps that you have to get the front end raised. If you want to get the jack from the front end, you'll need it quite high, but in this case I'm going from the side under the front, so I don't need it super high. So raise it up, I'll just use some rubber car ramps here to get it up a little bit higher so the jack fits under. You also want to loosen off the wheel lugs before you jack it up, so try and just crack those. Jack it up, make sure your car stands are really secure, and if you need to chock anything under the back wheels, make sure you put something underneath. You have this center bit here which kind of locks in and holds the brake calipers in, and then you have these pins which holds everything together. These pins, it's got a flathead screw end on the end, but actually you can just tap them out. So from the other side, the inside, you can just tap that straight through and everything comes out. So what we'll go ahead and do is first take that pin out, so it just comes in those 3 points like I said, 2 on those locking pins and 1 to the caliper, and then we can go ahead and just knock those pins out. Make sure you're holding down that center cross bracket too, because that could spring out. So just give that a tap and then pull that pin out whilst you're holding that center cross mounting bracket in. Alright, so that's it there. In those pins there are little holes where that paper clip locks it into. That's that center bracket. And then we'll go ahead and take that top pin out. And it's as simple as that, guys. They're the 4 components that you need to release in order to pull out the brake pads. So with the brake pads now, it's important to try and wiggle them out whilst also kind of pulling the pad in to push the caliper pistons, the pots, back into the caliper. You'll need to do this in order to get the new brake pads in. So as you can see here, there's lots of crud and grime on these pads. The pads are Hitachi pads. What I'm doing here is levering those pistons back into the caliper with a screwdriver. You can do this with a G-clamp. I've seen people do this as well. So you'd want to do that to all 4 pistons obviously. So I'll try and give you a better look here. You can see I'll push those pistons in on that side and taken the brake pad out, and now we'll do the other one on the other side. The brake pads actually do have little holes in them too, so you can grab a screwdriver and kind of lever them out like I'm doing here. and also it's worthwhile pushing against those pistons to push them in a little bit, so it makes it easy to get the new pads in. So the brake pads aren't worn at all, they're fairly new, but there is a lot of grime and crust on them. So these are the new pads, obviously the Intima SR pads. We'll go ahead and open them up. As you can see, slightly different compounds, really nice and thick, good quality pads. So we'll go ahead and slip those in. You may need to push those pistons in a little bit, but in this case, I've already done that and they slide in very easily, as you can see. Now it's all a matter of just reversing that process, putting those pins back in, noting how that cross member is locked in with the pins, and then obviously that safety pin to lock them all in. So you have it, one corner done. Too easy. And while you're here, it's a good opportunity to give things a little clean. I've just got some soapy water, wiping everything down with a brush and a sponge. What I found cool here is that the front bar actually has ducting that goes right under the car that actually directs straight to the brake rows and brakes, which is really cool, kind of race style, which I never really noticed previously. Alright, we'll go ahead and put the wheels back on. Front right is done, and then we'll go ahead and do the other side, the front left. Alright, so as you can see here, just speeding through the process again, taking those lock pins out, pulling the brake pads out. And you would have noticed that the brake pads actually had two other little shields on them. You don't actually need to put them back on new pads. In this case they were still on, but I've decided to leave them out. I've noticed I get a bit better feel without them. I think they're to reduce squeal, but I haven't noticed brake pads ever squealing without them, so it seems fine. So just putting these mountain safety brackets back in. That bottom pin is going in now. And not to forget that paper clip, not to forget that safety pin too. Alright, so that's the front done, as easy as that. Obviously tighten up your lug nuts a little bit, but when you drop the car, make sure to tighten them up, torque them properly. Got the 18 working on the car. Pit crew. Alright, so the rear is very similar to the front. There's literally two pins here, this supporting bracket and then the pin. But the rear, for some reason, has Phillips head and the front has flat head. So we'll go ahead and just unwind this a little bit. Actually, we'll pull the pin off first. It's a little bit different shape, but same principle. So you can just push it through from the back, but make sure you're holding this bracket because that can fling out. It's a little bit sprung. Simple as that. That pin obviously clips into that. That one's a bit easier, but it's worth giving these a clean as well. So it's just those two pins and then this bracket. Simple as that. Alright, so now I can take the brake pads out. What we'll need to do is make sure we're pulling in the pistons, because yeah, they'll be locked in otherwise. Alright, so we're now pulling out the brake pads. You can just use a really thin, small screwdriver and literally lever it out. But try and pull it in, so to pull those pistons in at the same time. We'll probably have to lever those pistons back in a little bit to get the new pads in, so it'll be a lot thicker obviously, but really pretty simple to get them out. There we go. Still got quite a lot of meat on these ones. They do come with these mounting bracket things too. That's what helps the piston push into the brake pad. I've heard people say that you don't need them when you put them back on. But yeah, I'm not too sure. I guess it makes sense to put them back on. So that's one. We'll get the other one now. go. It's the second one. It's the little piston bracket. These are actually Nissan pads. Nissan Akibono. But they look okay. Look like pretty decent pads actually. Okay, let's open up the new pads. Alright, so we've got Intima on the front and we're also going with the same Intima on the rear. These already have some kind of mounting piston pad on them, so we'll see what the OEM brackets, if they fit on, and if it works we'll put them on, but otherwise looks like they already come with a little pad anyway, so it might be okay. Alright, so yeah, it looks like we won't need the factory bracket for the brake pads. Intima already mount one up on there. It's already on there, so we won't need that one. But yeah, definitely keep a hold of that if you ever decide to change the pads to something else. You may need it, so keep it handy somewhere. Alright, so now we can put them straight in the brake caliper. Like I said, you may need to wedge in the piston in here. This one looks like it's going to fit straight in because we pushed it in a little bit, so just wiggle that one in. Line it up with your holes at the rear. There we go. The simplest brake pad install you'll ever do. Thank you, Nissan. Okay, so we can put the pins back in now. And obviously, we've got to mount this back in as well. Okay, they're in. Now we've just got this little spring clip, paper clip thing to go back in, and then we're done. Alright, there you have it. Done. So we're going to bed in these brake pads now. So what we need to do is kind of two sets of braking. The first set is applying medium pressure from around 50 to 60 k's down to about 10 to 15 kilometers, not coming to a full stop, and doing that around 8 to 10 times. So just medium pressure from 50 to 60 k's down to 10 to 15 k's, 8 to 10 times. And then the second set will be firm, heavy braking, 2 to 3 times from about 70 kilometers an hour down to about 10 to 15 k's. So not coming to a full stop, but applying really firm, heavy pressure. And that's really it. And the same process goes for bedding in certain types of slotted rotors too. So when we go to step 2 in the brake upgrade, we'll do the same for the rotors. Okay, so from 50 to 60 k's down to about 10 to 15, 8 to 10 times. So we've done that a few times now. So we'll begin the heavy braking procedure as well, 2 to 3 times from about 70 k's an hour. And a lot heavier down to 10 to 15. Just make sure you're doing this in a safe area too. You don't want to be doing this when there's lots of traffic around, obviously slamming on the brakes. So I'll do that 2 or 3 more times. Yeah, feels really good. Before it was just, you know, brick on a brick. Before it was just so firm. There was just nothing there, no play, no feel, just really hard. But now you can feel the brake pedal being pushed down. It's not spongy or anything, but there is like real feeling there, and it just pulls up so much quicker. So yeah, really stoked with how the brake pad upgrade step 1 is done. Looking forward to see how the rotors go. Yeah, it's just so much better. Really surprised. The brake pads before must have been just absolutely crap. Hitachi on the front and Nissan on the back. Not a good combo. but with these Intima SR pads, yeah, they seem to be, it's like night and day difference. I'm really happy. Super cheap mod, and anyone can change the brake pads on a Skyline GTR with these calipers. It's just so easy, so definitely recommend it. Yeah, really stoked how it's turned out. Alright, so yeah, stay tuned guys for part 2. We'll be changing the front rotors to slotted rotors tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. See you guys.